All right, John Powell, composer of How to Train Your Dragon 2. Thank you for being here, and let me just start right off by asking you, how do you take what you did in the first film and then build upon that for the sequel?
This is a good question, and had it been just after the meeting I had when we spotted the film, I probably would have said no idea, because I probably spent 2 hours with the filmmakers explaining everything that I was going to do, and then they leave the room, and then you realize you have 8 weeks to do it, and at that point I think I nearly wanted to kill myself. So it's all about kind of expectations of the filmmakers, really, and then obviously my expectations not to make it too different, too similar, try and put it in the sweet spot. So it was really story-led. That's always the trick, is allow the film to tell you what it needs, allow the filmmakers to give you the inspiration, and I just wanted to use the songs, the tunes from before, as well as they needed to be used for the film, so they were successful in that moment, and make sure I'd written all the material I needed to add, all the extra stuff that this particular story needed.
Right. Yes, and you're also, I guess, dealing with a continuation in the story, for one, and for another, there's this added element of, it's now, not to give too much away for anyone who hasn't seen the movie, but it's now a mother-son story, as on top of being about, dragons and such. So how do you combine those two elements into the film, the fantastical elements of it and then the human elements of the storyline?
Well, the human element was that our main characters are growing up. So the music tried to mature itself a little and follow them. The new tunes that were needed to be a little bit more, not complex, but a little deeper, or capable of being a little deeper. And then the fantastical is always there. You never really need to support that musically. You should always try and support, I think, the emotion. And it was one of those things where I specifically wrote a tune that I called Lost and Found. I needed a tune that was gonna hit every moment within the film where somebody lost somebody, somebody found somebody. Could I get one tune to cross those two ideas? And that's the tune that follows really Hiccup right from the moment when it starts to be hinted at when they talk about. And I think at the first time is when he first sees his mother coming up through the clouds. There's kind of a very unusual version of it there, and it goes to when she's talking about how she was, where she was during the attack back at Burke, when she was lost to the family. That's its most explicit first example, and from there onwards I then developed that tune in various ways. When Hiccup and his mother are playing with dragons in the middle of the movie, there's a version of that tune there, and it keeps coming when other people are lost. I use it then. When he loses Toothless, use it there. So when he finds Toothless, most importantly, really near the end of the movie, when Toothless comes back to him from out of this hypnosis Drago's put him in. So that's the most important moment, probably, and really I was working in a way back from that moment. So as long as that tune worked there, I had to make sure it worked everywhere else.
Right. Yeah. And it's interesting because you've done quite a few scores for animated films, as well as quite a few for live-action films. Can you talk about the sort of subtle differences in working in those two mediums? Is there a difference for you?
Well, when I started probably in Hollywood, the very first thing I did was work with hands on song arrangements for Prince of Egypt. So that was DreamWorks, and that's the first time I met Jeffrey Katzenberg. And then the next time was not that long after that. Harry Gregson Williams and I were asked to do Ants together, and so we started to work with Jeffrey and Hans on that. And one of the things that came out of that, and this is a studio that's trying to find its own voice. And I remember Jeffrey saying to us, "Don't score it like an animated film. Score it like a live-action film." I mean, in a way, he was trying to sort of find DreamWorks' voice, and he was coming. He and a lot of people were coming from Disney, so they were trying to reject the Disney style of things and try and do their own style. And that was one of the mantras that we were given: don't sound like animated music. Now, what animated music sounds like is perhaps changed since then, and I know that Jeffrey doesn't worry too much about that. We can basically add a lot of comedy and slapstick in the music, and he's quite happy. In fact, he doesn't want the music to be too serious. But at that time, I remember he was pushing us to keep it really quite serious and not treat it as a movie for kids.
Right. And in this film in particular, it goes into some very dark and adult places that I think surprise a lot of audiences. Can you talk about, I guess, communicating that musically, or underscoring that in a sense?
Well, I suppose there's a moment in the film, the most difficult moment perhaps for Hiccup. I'm not going to tell anybody about it, but it happened to me when I was 14. So I probably scored the movie as I felt it in my life. I mean, I tried to make it feel as difficult for him. Music is a very hard thing to talk about. The reason we have music is because we can't find the words. And so something that's kind of a real sort of family tragedy, or a very important moment in your life, you really can't. I've always found it very difficult to speak about. I think that's why I always found that music was much more expressive to that deep set of complicated issues that you're trying to explain. So sometimes you take on the movie as if you're in it, as if you are part of its story, and I hope that's what audiences enjoy about good movies, is that they become one with the characters, and if I'm scoring the music to follow the character by being the character, then hopefully it resonates correctly for the audience.
Right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us, John, and congratulations on the movie.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
Thank you.